Appearing now via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, Kurt Helin, NBC Sports Radio, NBA, the 24/7 Sports Talk Network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Download the NBC Sports Radio mobile app today. We are down to final 20 games or so for most teams in the association. Kurt, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back on, man.
Absolutely. Sixers and Heat tonight. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage begins at 7:30. And, I want to get into a little bit about the Sixers. The last time we talked, Kurt, they had just beat Cleveland, looked very impressive, that 13-2 run. And then they go make us scratch all our heads and go to Milwaukee and blow not one but two double-digit leads, a 20 and a 19-pointer. But then they followed it up with a nice road win in Charlotte the other night. So every time we feel like this team is kind of taking that step, they take one little tiny step back. But at this stage of the season, does that game in Milwaukee worry you at all, or is it just one of a long 82?
Yeah, look, it's one of a long 82 for a young team, and that's just the ups and downs you get with a team that's learning how to win and learning how to play every night at a high level and become a team. I mean, it's an adjustment to start to become the team that sells the building out and gets a target on its back. It's John Hollinger now with the used to be with ESPN, now with the Memphis Grizzlies, had a great line for years that the Lakers don't know what it's like to play in the NBA because every night, during the Kobe era, every night the building was sold out and it was a big event when they came to town. Philadelphia is going to be that team, and it comes with some adjustments. You get everybody's best shot, and Milwaukee's fighting for a playoff spot. That's obviously a good young team on its own right with Giannis. You've got to bring it. You can't just take your foot off the gas against these kind of teams or they'll come back.
That's a really good point because if you saw that game on Sunday night, Jason Terry, a veteran, he was imploring that crowd to get into that game because he knew these young guys will fold if you get into this game. And the Sixers did look a little shell-shocked on that second 19, when they were up by 19 and the Bucks started coming back. You saw them like, nothing will go in for us. But part of the problem for the Sixers, everybody asked me, why do they always blow these big leads? And, Kurt, my answer really, they don't have – Markelle Fultz was supposed to be that guy to take the ball to the basket. They rely on jump shots so much that if they're not going down, you're going to get into these situations where that run will happen against you.
Yeah, and by the way, learning how to adapt to not, look, there are cold streaks for every team. Maybe not Houston, but every team has these offensive moments where there's this stretch where the ball doesn't go in, but the ability to get stops or get to the line or find a way to kind of power through that is just part of being a veteran team. But you're right. I think that, look, without Markelle Fultz, you really lack the kind of secondary shot creator that you were hoping for. Simmons obviously can create shots, and you can run through stuff through Embiid in the post and what have you, but at the end of the day, you need a second guy if you're really going to be successful in this league who can get to the rim, who can create for himself and others, and Fultz is ultimately, ideally, going to be that guy. They don't have him now.
Any indication? There's so much mystery around Fultz, but if the Sixers would play him, down the stretch here, if he were cleared, ready, he was ready, the Sixers were ready, any thought that they would try to incorporate him over the next 10, 15 games?
No, I think, I first off, there's no good feeling from anybody. I'm not even sure Brett Brown has a great idea of what they're going to do, just listening to him talk. But beyond that, everyone I talk to, it's just kind of like, I don't think so, but I don't know. My guess is that we're not going to see him until July in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point going into the playoffs, you'd rather, if for a guy who had struggled with confidence issues, letting him go out there in Summer League and destroy a lesser talent might be better for him in that sense, rather than coming back and throwing him into the playoff mix. And by the way, having to adapt to a rotation and adapt your team a little bit to you're adding talent, but you're making changes on the cusp of the playoffs, and that's never easy.
Kurt Helin is with us here from NBC Sports Radio, covers the NBA. I want to get your take and some thoughts on this one-and-done situation that's going out here. Everybody seems to have a big opinion on it, whether or not the NBA should get involved, whether or not they should go back to letting the high school kids just come right in. What is the NBA discussing, and what is your thoughts on the current situation?
Well, the NBA is taking their time and talking to a lot of people with this, but my sense is they say, correctly, by the way, sense that if you're going to make a change, the next year or two
right.
is the time to kind of implement it. With everything that's going on with the NCAA and the FBI investigation and that mess and how it's kind of just exposed. I exposed what everybody in the industry knew, which is that there is a flood of money going to guys between shoe companies and agents and what have you. That maybe it's time to get back into this. I'll tell you that what I keep hearing is the NBA is leaning towards some version of the baseball style rule, the baseball rule where, I can draft you out of high school and develop you, but if you go to college, you've got to go for 3 years. I don't know if it'll be 3 years. If in the NBA it might be 2, but if you choose to go to Duke or UCLA or Temple or pick your school,
right,
you've got to go for at least 2. But if you come to but part of that is the league is much better set up now to develop talent than it was, 15, 20 years ago, where that's just been part of what they've had to do with one and done. So teams are, not only have the G League, but they have development coaches. They're used to bringing guys in and on a little more slowly. So I think they're better prepared to handle it. There's still a ton of questions about that and how that fits with college and how that's going to work.
Well, Kurt, if they had their druthers,
questions to be answered. But
if they had their druthers, the NBA, would they prefer the kids to get to them sooner or later? Would they rather them play college for 2-3 years, or would they rather them come right from high school, the elite ones, and get their hands on them right away?
No, if they had their druthers, if the owners and Adam Silver had their way, there'd be a 2 to 3 year. They would bump the age limit up to 20 or 21, honestly, for 2 reasons. A, it's easy. If you don't have to pay for the G League and you're letting Tom Izzo and Mike
right.
Krzyzewski and everybody else do your development work for you, then all the better, man. I don't have to pay it. B, then those guys create brands for themselves when they come out. It's not just a one and done and hey, not everybody saw Markelle Fultz. Well, everybody would have seen Markelle Fultz, or everybody would have seen Anthony Davis, or name your guy who was a one and done more, and they built this brand up to bring to the NBA. So in that sense, they would all prefer it. They'd like to tell you that they'd make fewer draft mistakes, and I would like to remind you that they made plenty of draft mistakes when they saw guys for 4 years. Michael Olowokandi is still out there, played plenty of college ball. They'd still make plenty of mistakes, but they would, in theory, not have to pay for the development that they're doing themselves now.
Right, and the thought of, in baseball, a lot of those minor league situations are in towns that really embrace having something. The G League just doesn't draw flies, so they're not making money on that like some of these minor league baseball teams are.
No, it's not. You're right. They're in these small towns, and there's just a culture there where everybody goes and sees the Durham Bulls, or to use it, one everybody knows. But
right.
I'm out here in Southern California, and if Los Angeles, if you drive 50 miles, 40 miles, whatever it is, east from Dodger Stadium, you run into a couple of minor league ballparks that are pretty good. They fill out the out in the Inland Empire, the Quakes and some teams that they do pretty well and they develop players, but that culture isn't there in the NBA yet. In some ways, they have used the way the NFL has used college to do that. The NBA was using college; it's just not working anymore.
Kurt Helin's with us, NBC Sports Radio, and of course covers the NBA. We've got looks like the 8 teams in the East are pretty much going to be set. Detroit lost again last night. They're now 5 games back, so the 8 teams there, but a lot of playoff positioning in the East up for grabs. In the West, how about Portland and New Orleans putting their toe in the top 4? So we've got some really interesting playoff positioning stories as we head down the stretch. But does it really matter? Can anybody beat Golden State?
Maybe Houston. I mean, I think a lot of things have to – Houston has to prove it to me, to be honest with you. It's kind of a – look, here's the thing. You go into the playoffs, I know Golden State can beat you because not only do they have Durant and Curry, they're just flexible and they're versatile. And they will – all right, you need us to be big and defensive? We can kind of do this. We can do that. We can beat you smaller and faster. We can beat you a bunch of different ways. I don't know if Houston can do that. I don't know how Houston adapts once I start dragging Ryan Anderson into every pick and roll while he's on the floor, or it's forcing switches and matchups that they're less comfortable with. And trying to take away some of the things they like to do on offense. It'll be interesting. I think they're the one team with a chance, but they've got to prove it to me. But I do think, by the way, the playoff races and the playoffs are going to be fascinating. This is like I don't know. I feel like I'm watching Die Hard. I know how this is ending. Bruce Willis is going to win this, but that's not going to make it less entertaining. I think it has the potential to be a lot of fun.
I think so. And by the way, the top 4 seeds in the West have won 41 straight games combined between them. Unbelievable. Houston, Golden State, Portland, New Orleans. Kurt Helin, NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports network, which you can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Download the NBC Sports Radio mobile app today. Sixers and Heat tonight, 7:30, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Kurt, we'll do it again next week, pal.
I look forward to it. Thanks, man.